okay, so you can't do what you want to do. What do you have in you? What could you do? And I stopped and I pondered the question. And I said, I have 10 steps in me. Um, Almost like, kind of cavalier, like what's 10 steps going to do you? And I turned around and I took 10 more steps. And that was the saving grace in my life.
Wow. Okay, here we are. We are live. I am Mary Grace. I am so excited to bring you this premiere of an interview that I did earlier this week. This is Mary Grace TV, and we are streaming this on multiple platforms. We're on X, we're on Facebook, we are on Rumble, and we're on Instagram. So please say hello. Let us know where you're watching from. I have been promoting this interview, this live stream, because I really want everybody to be here and to take part. This is very exciting because it's an inspirational story. And it's a story that I think many of my listeners will be able to relate to. This is real life. This is a story of a woman who I recently met on X. Her name is Kim. She goes by Mimi. And she has a fantastic channel there that's very inspirational. And this story is going to move so many of you. So thank you to everyone who's coming in on Facebook, giving us messages. Let me check the Rumble feed over here and see how we're doing with that. Let's see if anybody, yep, I see Nancy over on Rumble. Good to see you. If you're on Instagram, I apologize. I'm not as good at tracking the chat over there, but I have a feeling we will have some people over there. So hello. And please share this. Please tag people that you think would want to hear a motivational and uplifting story today. Again, we are on multiple platforms. Okay, here comes SoCal Girl on YouTube. We've got so many good things happening. She says, Christine says, my grandkids call me Mimi too. So yes, Mimi is a grandmother to 3, and she is alive now to see them grow up and become adults. And that's a fantastic thing. So without further delay, I am going to play the interview that we did. If for some reason we don't have audio, it means that my software is acting up and I will have to restart the stream. Pray that that doesn't happen, because it will take a few minutes if I have to do that. And we don't want that to happen. There's a little glitch that every now and then comes along. Apologies if it happens, but it should be fine. You should be able to hear and see, and everything will be fine. So listen, I have Mimi in the green room. She is going to stick around. She is going to be active in the chat on X, and she is also going to be around at the end to answer some questions. So stick around. Don't go away. This is going to be fantastic. And get your questions ready. We will have a few minutes of Q&A at the end. Thank you, everybody, for being here. And as always, please remember to get on my mailing list, marygracemedia.com, so that you don't miss a show. And then also go over to my shopping tab. And if you like the content you see and you want more of this, please support the companies that have partnered with me over there at marygracemedia.com. We have some great companies, and it's always a good way to support these companies that have removed themselves from the woke corporatocracy. And we really want to do that, especially in MyPillow, mypillow.com, promo code Mary Grace. Check it out, because they're having some great specials today for Independence Day. All right, so we're going to just roll the tape here, and we will be back. We will be active in the chat, and we will come back after this recording plays, and we'll answer your questions with Mimi on live. Enjoy. Hello and welcome to the show. You are watching another episode of Mary Grace TV. I'm Mary Grace, and I am bringing you a wonderful guest today. I think all my guests are wonderful, but I have with me today coming on the feed, beautiful Mimi. She is a friend that I met through my Twitter/X account. And she's one of the more inspirational accounts on there. Some of us are over there trolling, and Mimi is posting inspirational content. So she creates a great balance to the other stuff that we're doing there. But it's more than the inspiration that I have her here for, because so many of you in my audience are struggling and dealing with things that are very challenging to you, especially from a health standpoint. And we've seen this more and more. America is pretty sick. The Western world is pretty sick. And a lot of the issues that we have can be reversed through diet and lifestyle. And Mimi is actually a testament to that. She has overcome Parkinson's, rheumatoid arthritis, even stroke, and bounced back to be a thriving, active grandmother of 3, just doing amazing things. So Mimi, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here.
Oh, thank you for having me. What a pleasure.
It's always fun to hear these transformational stories, because in the space that we're in, we hear a lot of negativity, and we actually are in the process of watching things decline. And when as we age, they tell us you're going to go downhill. You can expect this. It's just your lot in life not to be able to walk, or you have to accept this. And your story is different, because you were told things and you were given diagnoses, and you were even in a situation that looked pretty dire. I'm going to show this picture here, that you were bedridden. And yet here you are today doing things that people half your age, quite frankly, can't do.
Right.
So tell us your story. Just give us the backstory. Tell us, obviously you're not bedridden. So go.
No, I'm actually really active. You can't slow me down, though some would like to. But
Yeah.
so I'm going to be 70 in September. That'll put a little perspective of the the era that I grew up in. Still, there was a lot of healthy eating when I grew up. So we had deer, a lot of fresh dairy, fresh fish, nose to tail meat, and so I grew up eating really well, and eating a high fat, high protein diet with very little sugar. There was very little packaged food at this point in the store. So I think that, and I grew up in the country, so in a lot of ways that I knew that, so it was something that I could return to. But like a lot of other people, even though I ate well and cooked well, the whole fat's not good for you craze came out, and I definitely started to cut my fat, wanting to be trim and lean. And I was pretty active. I was an accomplished equestrian and a good athlete. So but I started to trim the fat, and then eventually became really pretty much plant-based. Was vegan for 6 years. And I think because I didn't eat a lot of packaged foods, that everything was well prepared, and that I was young enough, I got away with it during my 20s, 30s, and 40s. But then as we got into my 50s, I was quite busy working. I was a stay-at-home mom, but then I ended up, as my youngest went off to college, had a career, and did what a lot of people do, where you dive into your career, overwork, and you start neglecting the things that are really important and that allow you to thrive, working 60, 70 hours a week, and then was approaching menopause. Basically stripped of fat diet, again, pretty plant-based, maybe a little bit of protein, chicken, very little beef in my diet. And that's where it started to catch up on me.
What did you first notice when you say that it caught up? Your story sounds similar to mine. Like the under 40 crowd has a lot of, I guess, metabolic grace on their lives.
We do.
And
Yes.
and then people say, like, when you hit 40, things start to change. And a lot of my listeners, we have a lot of women in our audience. We also have a lot of women over 40. And so I think they're really going to relate to your story.
Yeah.
Things were fine, and then they weren't. And so
Yeah.
what kind of things did you start to notice at first with that career and all of the stress you were under and living a low-fat vegan life?
So I would say as I approached menopause, which was my early 50s for me,
Mm-hmm.
my sleep was affected. And that probably was the first thing that hit me. Um, and that's not good. You know, you think that you can get away with not having great sleep. It took a toll on me really bad. And I think that was the catalyst for some things. I started to have a couple falls,
Oh.
uneventful falls, but I broke bones. And uh, from that triggered for me what was called Dupuytren's. At the time, I had broke a couple wrists and had to have surgery. The Dupuytren's actually is a disease that typically affects males. Not surprised that it got me. I was definitely in my what I call masculine energy mode, working, you know, crazy, totally ignoring any sort of feminine aspect of myself. It was just all drive. And that's where you overproduce collagen and you get nodules on your hand. You lose the use of your hand, and what's interesting about that is the solution for it is wait until you lose your hand, the use of your hand, and then they do surgery and remove the nodules. I think there's like 28 that to develop at this point, and within 6 months I had all 28, which is rare. Well, I was an artist. I was a dinnerware designer, and it was in my right hand, and I remember being at the doctor saying, "That's not possible. This is what I do for a career. I can't wait to lose my hand." And that's not a solution. And I said, "Well, I'm sorry, that's it." But I did, what's interesting is I did research and discovered that there was a radiation treatment that was in Germany, hadn't quite been brought to the US. Couldn't get anybody to do it. And they would, low level radiation, which would destroy the nodules way before you even started to lose the use of your fingers and your hands. Basically, everything claws up into kind of a ball or a contortion. I
Right.
find, and you know, so here I am being really proactive, and that's the interesting part because I lost at some point down the road when we get to the story, I lost that sort of proactive mindset of like, wait, I'm not going to accept that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I did get radiation. I had to go to another state. As synchronicity would have it, this gentleman who worked in a cancer center found great results from it and actually knew somebody in Charleston, where I am, who did the radiation therapy for me. While I was with her, she noticed, because at this point now I'm having trouble. I could only stand if I sit, and I stood on my feet. I started to have a lot of pain. I had a lot of pain in my neck. I started to have a lot of inflammation, and she noticed it. So I'm kind of like focused on my hand, not paying attention, thinking, you know, I'm getting older. Of course, I'm getting arthritis. This is happening. And she looked at me and said, something is not right with you. Tell me what's going on. And I explained it. She said, you need to go to a rheumatologist. And it was that point that I was first diagnosed. While I'm being treated for the Dupuytren's, 2 courses of radiation, I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. And that's when things I just started to go downhill from there.
And that's an autoimmune condition.
It
And
is.
again, I've actually been working with our functional medicine doctor, Dr. Troy Sproul, and he talks about this. He talks about the stages or the contributors to autoimmune, and one of them is high stress. I'm going to put his QR code up here on the screen because my listeners might want to reach out to him. Yeah. So he talks about this, that it is, it's definitely a high stress lifestyle and environment. That's one of the contributors, one of the factors. There are many others as well. And I just actually went through the process with him to deal with some things that I'm wanting to focus on. I have an autoimmune Hashimoto's. And so he goes through the questionnaire with you, which is very different from normal medical protocol where the doctor hardly spends any time talking to you. So that's right there, Synapse, guys, officialsynapse.com. We'll get back to listening to Mimi here, but if you want to contact them, they do a free discovery call, and it's officialsynapse.com. Just tell them Mary Grace sent you. Let me see if I can get this off the screen. Okay, producer, come on, let's go. That's me, producer. So you were so this was the first hammer to fall,
Right.
was rheumatoid. And so what were you thinking as a mid-50s woman who had had all the things and all the success? All of a sudden you're hit with this. What's going on in your mind?
I mean, back then you pretty much, you have this, you're going to have to live with it. We have to manage it. And that's going to require a lot of medication, which
Yep.
I was put on. I mean, my medication for this illness alone was hitting the $60,000 mark a year. And so, you can't move as well. So now my activity level is going. I mean, it's quite painful. You're going through the course of, you're on the prednisone for a couple of years, which is not good for you.
No.
I'm starting to see, which is reverse, but I'm starting to see the moon phase happening. I'm on the methotrexate, the Plaquenil, and then that's not working. And then we're on the biologics, which are the expensive injections, just to try to function. And, it wears on you. The medication is really brutal. And so now I'm starting to, accept sort of a downward spiral. That's like what you said in the beginning. This is just my lot. I drew a bad cards. I have a bad hand.
And how many people? How many times had you heard that prior to that from other people? And to my listeners, how many of you are thinking, "This is just my life. I'm getting older. It's what to expect."
Right.
How many people are thinking that?
Most of them.
Yeah, and that's where you were, and it happens really quickly, doesn't it?
It does. It happens really quickly, and when you're in a lot of pain, and especially now chronic pain, because there is a lot of pain with it in your joints. It's hard to think clear. It's hard to. I mean, it really is. There's something about chronic pain that just eats at you, and thinking clearly is not easy. And I'm not thinking clearly. I'm eliminating the gluten. I'm eliminating the nightshades. Other than that, you don't get too much other direction from health.
And were you still working at the time? You were actively
I was
in your
still
career?
working. I was active in my career. And it was, it was tough. But as it would turn out, 2 years to the month, and I had some, I'll just back up real quick. One of the first biologic that they put me on, and they pretty much tell you, I'm not sure if this is going to work, but insurance requires us to start with the cheapest and give that a few months. I had severe side effects from that. I would walk down the street, and not a street that I would walk down, hundreds of times. And all of a sudden I have no idea what town I'm in. And I would have hallucinations and other things. So, you go, and that definitely affected me. And so, that was allergic, but I'm going through this, trying to manage. And 2 years to the month was when, I previously had some neuro symptoms. It was not right. My children were noticing I'm not right. I clearly could see I'm not right. And that's when I was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease.
And so this is all before the age of 60?
Right around 61.
Okay.
So
Okay. So
9 years ago. So right at the 60 mark.
Okay. So
Yeah. So now I'm thinking my life is really over.
Over a period of several years. Yeah. I mean, I've known
two year period.
Mm-hmm.
I had all three. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. I've known people with Parkinson's, and it's devastating. And in the people that I've seen it, and yet here you are, clearly asymptomatic. Something's changed, and we're going to get to that. So you mentioned your family. At this point, your grandchildren were young, right? I mean,
they are. They're older teen boys now, but yes, they were young, and they're looking. Yeah, Mimi's failing really fast.
Yeah.
What's the matter? And I have 3 daughters, and my daughters would look at me, and you could just see the pain in their eyes. All of a sudden I can't function, and I can't. I'm an accomplished cook. I couldn't make Thanksgiving dinner, They would come and decorate for me because I couldn't. I mean, there were a lot of things that were starting to happen that I just couldn't do. Um, my driving even was restricted because I was starting to have cognitive issues as well. And,
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
fighting me. You can't work anymore. And I just wasn't ready to give that up. Um,
Sure.
Parkinson's slowly chips away at you, and you lose your movements get smaller, and your world gets smaller. And that's really tough, at a time in your 60s, which, you're thinking about, well, we're maybe retiring soon and doing some things. I'm still single, but I was single at the time, hoping that maybe I might meet somebody. And it's like,
Mhm.
who's going to sign up for this?
Yeah.
There's just no, I've got like
Yeah.
too many things that are going wrong, and who's going to
Mhm.
watch me, fade away like this?
Mhm.
And my world was getting smaller, and my hope was getting smaller, and my faith of anything good in my life was diminishing. It was a tough period for me.
Yeah, it happens so fast too, and we're never guaranteed tomorrow, right?
No, correct.
But and I'm trying to imagine, what's going through your mind. My mom had rheumatoid arthritis, and it was devastating. She was so limited, and she was incredibly active when we were younger, and she did a lot of needlework and
So did
beautiful
I.
beautiful sewing and things like that, and then it just became increasingly difficult for her, and
Yeah.
she worked as long as she could, but I remember the final straw was when she fell and broke a hip, and it just became very complicated, and I won't go into too much of that, but we watched a lot of that decline to where she was no longer confident even to walk outside the home. um, she was wheelchair bound later in her life, and so I'm thankful that I was able to live here with her and help her, from a certain time on. But it's just, even just the rheumatoid arthritis can be devastating, and now you've got Parkinson's on top of it.
All right.
But wait, there's more, right?
Yeah, there's more.
So,
Yeah.
and I'm not making light of that.
No.
I'm trying to take it in because like I said, I'm very aware that people who are listening today, somebody's going to resonate with this story or have a family member that does. And I hope you stay, because we're going to get to the hopeful part. It has a good ending. And so let's keep going. I want to stop for a second though and ask you about your faith. Were you a person of faith up until this time, and what was happening with you as you're going through this?
Yes, so faith is important to me, but I was losing it.
Hmm.
I was, I just was. And my story might have ended. Well, it was the way it was. We all, go through periods like that. And it may have turned out better quicker if my faith was a little stronger, but I was just beaten down and crushed. Um, so I had a hard time grabbing a hold of it. Yeah, and my family would notice that, but I was in pain. I couldn't find a way out. I was on one medication. They're piling medications on me. I was being, for all intents purposes, poisoned. I just really had a hard time grabbing a hold of it.
Yeah. Yeah. So what happened next?
Um, so I ended up having, at this point, I had to stop working. It just was too hard. I'm on about 1,200, to put in perspective, 1,200 milligrams of carbidopa levodopa, the gold standard for Parkinson's. And I would start at 5 in the morning, taking it and lie in bed, waiting for it to kick in before I'd even step foot out, for about 45 minutes for it to kick in. And I was on it every 3.5 to 4 hours, which is an enormous amount at this phase. this many years with it. I was originally, or about a year in, suspect for multiple system atrophy, which is one of the more progressive advanced forms, because I was having a lot of symptoms that weren't typical of regular Parkinson's. And so I had to quit work, which was really devastating for me, just because I had to, not because I wanted to or I was ready to give it up. It was like losing independence. But anyway, I had a good day. I actually lost some earbuds that my son-in-law had gotten me. I did a 2-mile walk, 1 mile, 1 mile back. Lost earbuds one of them when I got home, and turned around to go back. It was a brand new gift. Ended up, of course, it was at the 1 mile mark. So now I've walked 4 miles, and I walked with a cane at this point. And I was, it gave me a little bit of little bit of a boost to my mood. I just walked 4 miles. Maybe I can do something with. Maybe I can, improve myself a little bit better. And it was a good day. And I was sitting on a park bench. It was in February, enjoying the nice weather, and went to get up, felt dizzy, and had a stroke. Medium-sized stroke, yeah. And that was 2 years after the Parkinson's.
So you're feeling good.
Yeah, I got clobbered.
And you got clobbered. Okay, so at this point, you're in your midst, crazy, yeah. So
Yeah,
just when you're having a little bit of hope, right?
I did that day. I really
Yeah.
I was sitting on the bench thinking, okay, I'm not happy with what's happening in my life, but I just did 4 miles, and I'm feeling like a little mood boost.
Yeah.
I'm ready to, maybe I need to change my perspective on this.
Mm-hmm.
It's not what I want for my life, but this is what I'm living with.
Sure.
And maybe I can do something, and bam, I got a stroke. That, like, as I'm thinking these great thoughts, the stroke hits.
Wow.
You
And
know?
okay, so you did you get were you by yourself? Did you say your son
I
was
was
with
by
you?
I was by no, 3 dogs son-in-law. No, I was
Oh,
by
sorry, your
myself.
son-in-law.
I was by myself, luckily, because I probably would have not survived. It was an isolated park. 2 guys were getting ready to jog. I could see out of the corner of the eye, getting to put their foot up to tie their laces on their sneakers, and I was able to call out enough to them, and they were the ones that called 911.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Otherwise, somebody would have found me. It was like 5:30 at night in February. They would have found me the next morning.
Yeah.
Because I
Gosh.
lost the whole left side of me. My arm and my leg seized up, and I couldn't talk. And speak. And as it turned out, I got to the hospital. Within a half an hour, I got TPA, which is a drug that prevents further clots from happening.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a stroke center, and again, it was a medium-sized stroke, and that's dependent on how long you have the symptoms before they subside. But definitely TPA prevented anything further from happening, and I was just lucky that these 2 guys happened
Mm-hmm.
to pull up.
Yeah.
And enough that they could hear me speak. Because
Sure.
I tried to dial.
Yeah.
I couldn't dial out on the phone.
It's like angels.
I know, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, stories like that, it's so clear that God has a destiny on your life, and that it wasn't your time. And
It wasn't.
what are the odds that these 2 guys would be there in this kind of isolated area? I really believe that God intervenes in things like that.
Yes.
And
Yes.
you clearly had a will to live. You were out there walking and trying to push through this, even
Right.
in spite of how hard it was. And so here you are, you're in the hospital, just boom, 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 one thing after another. And I can't imagine what you're going through emotionally because of this. And I look at your channel now, and I see the things you post. It's just so hard to imagine somebody who's at rock bottom like that, with all of these things, again, because the conventional medical wisdom would be telling you to get your affairs in order,
Yeah.
right? And
Well,
yeah,
they actually, yeah, and I'm not quite at rock bottom, because I came through the stroke fine. Actually, through everything, it was the easiest part. Unfortunately, the IV that I was administered, probably in the ambulance, though the hospital has something is responsible for in part, was infected with staph A. So I was released from the hospital 3 days after the stroke, 3 days. 24 hours later, I passed out. Luckily, my daughter caught me. Was rushed back to the hospital in the middle of the night. They discovered that I had bacteremia from the staph that was spreading through my body, becoming sepsis, and was really sick. And that is the worst part of everything. I was released 11 days later, unbeknownst to me, and I was positive for 5 days, which is not good. They put me on a second antibiotic, and I'm screaming my back's in pain, and they're saying, you know, lady, you've been lying in bed for forever, how long? Of course your back's hurting you. And I kept trying to say to them, no, but you don't understand. I've never had back issues. And so they released me 11 days later, taking me off of the antibiotic that was improving me, sent me home with a PICC line, a walker, was still in a lot of pain, unable to move very well, and sent me home with 30 days more of this antibiotic. And about 2.5 weeks later, I ended up back in the hospital. My blood work was normal. They wanted to send me home. My son-in-law absolutely refused, said, I'm sorry, you need to do an MRI. My mother-in-law is sick. You know, my daughter's there too, saying something is wrong with her. And they said, we can't see anything. She has antibiotics. She just needs to finish them. Anyway, they refused to take me home. My family did. Thank goodness. They saved my life.
Everybody needs an advocate. Everybody needs an advocate.
Absolutely. And there was nothing on the blood work to suggest that the doctors were wrong and that I was right, you know, that I was sick, but my family knew something was wrong.
Yeah.
And demanded an MRI. I finally got one at 3 a.m. They came back with their tails in the legs, saying that the infection is spread, causing osteomyelitis and discitis, which is the staph is now eaten my lumbar spine, my disc, and I had an abscess of staph in my spinal canal. If that were to burst, it would immediately go to my brain and kill me. And they're like, you're in the hospital and this is grave. And yeah, so that was that was like everything else kind of paled in comparison to
Sure.
this.
Yeah.
Because it's pretty hard once it seeds in your body like that, especially when you're on antibiotics, to get rid of it. It encapsulates. I had emergency surgery in the middle of the night for surgical debridement in my spine, but you know, everybody's calling to tell me they love me before I go in. I'm becoming septic.
Yeah.
And I had a 50% chance of even surviving through the night, just because it spread that bad through my body.
And this is one of those things I think people are a little more aware now of sort of the dangers of hospitals.
Yes.
And the hidden perils. I don't think I would say definitely more than a few years ago.
Yeah.
You know, when my mom was in a rehab facility for her broken hip, she developed C. diff, and it was similar. Yeah, it was similar because when I talked to the doctor, and I had a friend who was a doctor, he said, your mom's hip is going to be fine, but the C. diff could kill her.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized how serious it was, and we were just praying. And so I get it. I mean, and staph and sepsis, it's just boom, instant.
Yes.
So I think this is a good time to take a quick break. Okay. I'm on the edge of my seat here. I think my listeners are.
We are. Yeah, we are. This is pretty much rock bottom.
Yeah. So don't go away. And I just want to remind everybody that if you're if you are liking what you're seeing, stick around, just pay attention. We do have some affiliate partners I want to tell you about that help us keep the show going. So if you see something that's interesting to you, please reach out and support these companies that are helping us keep the show on air. We'll be right back. Listen, your health is your best investment. We have a country to save, and we need people who are in the best shape of their lives, physically, mentally, spiritually. Why not connect with a team who cares about you on every single level from the inside out? Official Synapse is that team. Officialsynapse.com. It's official, synapse.com. Tell them Mary Grace sent you, and they will treat you like family. If you're like most people, you really probably haven't thought about transferring your paper dollars into physical gold and silver. But I want to tell you a story. My friend Andrew Sorcini over at Beverly Hills Precious Metals, he recently went overseas and he wanted to buy a watch. He likes fine watches. He took 3 currencies with him. He took gold, he took Bitcoin, and he took American dollars. Now, there used to be a time when the American dollar was king. I remember that when I used to travel overseas. Everybody wanted dollars. The people that he was dealing with would not take his dollars because the dollar is so devalued around the world. They wanted the gold. So this is what I recommend to you. I want you to think about this. If you have cash in the bank, if you have an investment account that you have worked hard for years to accumulate, consider the value of converting that money into physical gold and silver. You're not buying something that's losing value. You're changing those worthless dollars into a tangible physical asset that will go up in value, which it has done historically. Here's what you're going to do. You're going to go to bh-pm.com. The first thing you're going to do is schedule that free consultation. Second thing, just think rationally about this, pray about it, go to the Lord, see what the best decision for you and your family is. I can't tell you that. I don't want to pressure you into that. What I do know is don't be scared, be prepared. And so the third thing you want to do is make a decision for you and your family. Make a decision, take action. bh-pm.com. Let them know Mary Grace sent you. When it comes to food, we really want to be aware of what is in the food that we're consuming. And that includes different types of technologies, jibber jabbers, technology that can alter your genetic makeup. And this is why we want to focus on American grown beef that isn't injected with things that you wouldn't put into your own body. We really don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. We saw 4 years ago what happened when the whole country shut down and people couldn't even go to the grocery store. We saw what happened when meat and other foods were rationed, and that could happen any day. We want you to be prepared. We want you to take action. And one of the best ways to do that is to secure food for yourself and your family. What better way than to go to griddownchowdown.com, use promo code Mary Grace, get a sustainable, reliable, shelf-stable source of high-quality American beef. All you do is go to griddownchowdown.com, tell them Mary Grace sent you, put your order in the basket and check out, and you're good to go. The other thing you can do is you can get a subscription. If you do a subscription, you're going to get this freeze-dried beef delivered to your door every month. And you're going to save a little bit while you do that. You're going to stockpile it, or you can just cook with it. Some people are just using it for their regular cooking. It's really up to you, but it's super convenient because it's freeze-dried and it's shelf-stable for 12, 15 years or more. Go to griddownchowdown.com and use promo code Mary Grace. I just want to give a shout out to everybody who watches this show. Thank you for being a participant. Thank you for being a loyal audience member. I just want to remind you, if you like what you've seen, please share this and don't forget to subscribe, turn on your notifications, and also sign up for my email list so you never miss a show. Okay, we're back. And for those of you who are just joining in, we are talking to Mimi, and we left off with a pretty dire situation. You were in the hospital, you had a raging staph infection, and you were basically given a 50-50 chance of living on top of all the diagnoses that you already had.
Mhm.
So what happened? What's next?
I left the hospital the beginning of April, so I got in about February 7th. Beginning of April, I left, and then I ended it in rehab. And the picture that you showed me in the bed is where I'm in rehab. At this point now, they're saying that it's Mrsa because all the antibiotics were failing. And I had a lot of complications when I was in the hospital, including like 0 white blood cells and being on lockdown. But anyway, I'm in, and that's one of my grandsons that came to visit me. That face is blocked out. But
Yep.
I went into rehab, learning to walk again, to do a few stairs, and went home. Had physical therapy for about 15 months, and I'm not doing well. My family's thinking, and approaching the subject, if this doesn't turn around, we're going to have to think about putting you in a home. I was very limited what I could move. I had to sit to wash my hair, sit to shower, sit to prepare any kind of a food, had to use aid to move.
Now, were you living on your own at this time, or were you with
I
family?
was. I moved into my family's home,
Okay.
but they were traveling, and I had my daughter actually was newly married, so I moved into the in-law suite with them. I couldn't live in my place. I had 27 stairs. I never went back because they said I'll never walk stairs again.
Right.
Wow. And so they were traveling, but I had an in-law and I had home health and somebody to come help prepare food and help me through the summer. So about 15 months physical therapy, and the doctor said, this is just, I have another curve in my spine because of the infection. It had a self-fuse. They're like, you're lucky you're alive. You just need to live like this. And, I still could hardly move, could hardly do things. I'm really not taking this well. This is just, and I'm in an enormous amount of pain on top of that. And it was really hard for me to handle. Um, I was quite discouraged. And then one day I walked to it's my famous mailbox story. I walked to the mailbox and wanted to try to walk further, and I couldn't. And I turned around in absolute defeat, just thinking, I'm just going to let this take me. I mean, I can't get anywhere. I still at this point have a 50-50 chance of living because the bacteria hides and encapsulates and waits for an opportune time to infect you. So my prognosis still isn't looking good. I'm on 13 plus medications, and still having a lot of off symptoms with Parkinson's, and my outlook is everything's dim. But I turn around in defeat thinking I'm going to let this take me. And, I hear, okay, so you can't do what you want to do. What do you have in you? What could you do? And I stopped and I pondered the question. And I said, I have 10 steps in me. Almost like, kind of cavalier, like what's 10 steps going to do you? And I turned around and I took 10 more steps, and that was the saving grace in my life. Because I went every day to that new point and asked myself the same question, do you have 10 more steps? And I'd scan my body and I'd take 10 more steps, which is barely across the room. You stand in your home and take 10 steps. It's, from a lot of people, it's half across the room. But I took those 10 steps and asked myself that question every day from the new point. Something changed inside of me without me even realizing it. And at this point, I put on a little bit of weight and I need to get it off. The light bulbs have not connected. And I went to go see, I'm already on 13 plus medication. So I'm going across the street to see somebody to help me lose weight, thinking I'm going to get a 14 plus medication. And he proceeds to, he spent an hour and a half. I told him all that I was eating, still very plant-based, a little protein at night. Because protein and fat compete with your Parkinson's medication. And so therefore I would save 4 ounces of my protein to have at the end of the day when it didn't matter whether my symptoms were visible. during the day, and especially at the time when I was working, I didn't want people to see my Parkinson's symptoms. So I was really plant-based while I was taking my medication. But anyway, this gentleman said, you are a really sick woman. We need to get you well. Are you willing to trust me? And I said, well, sure, really not realizing what I just consented to. And he proceeded to tell me he wanted me to eat 50% fat, 25% protein, 25% carbs. And I looked at him and said, are you crazy? I said, one, my Parkinson's medicine's not going to work, and I'm going to get worse. And I'm trying to lose weight, and you want me to eat how much fat? And he said, again, I'm asking you, will you trust me? And I said, okay. I mean, at this point, I had nowhere else to turn. So I proceeded to eat a diet completely different than anything that I had known in my life, except for probably when I was a young kid. And
Wow.
I was, yeah.
Wow. Wow. So
Yeah.
this, I want to go back to the 10 steps. I
Yeah.
just, that was, it's incredible because, you know, the voices that you were hearing for so long were telling you it's over. This is your life.
Yes.
And you had agreed with that.
Yes, I had agreed with it.
Yeah.
And that's a great way to put it, because I didn't have to agree with it. You know,
Yeah.
we get these diagnoses, we were told we have these things wrong with us. And one of the lessons that I eventually learned and that's down the road, that I did agree with that. I chose to agree with it, and I had the option to not agree with it.
Mm-hmm.
But we're really programmed to agree when we're given by a doctor who has, plenty of criteria that tells you have it. Yes. And so much to the point that it's my rheumatoid arthritis, my Parkinson's, my stroke, my Mrsa.
Yeah.
Mine. It's mine. Don't take it from me.
That is so critical that you said that. This is something that I had a shift in over time, because the fact that I have an autoimmune condition, I'm very careful not to say my whatever it is, because I didn't ask for it.
Right.
and I don't, it's not mine. It's not what defines me. But I think this is interesting, and I want to camp out here for just a second, because so many of us go through life, especially I think our age. We were taught to trust the experts. We're taught that the person in the white coat is really the expert. And I'm not saying that no doctors can be trusted, but there's a mindset that people who came of age, I would say Gen X, boomers, really have been taught that those experts are to be trusted. And so when they tell you, this is your life, this is what you can hope for, this is your future, we tend to take it at face value and take ownership, and then it becomes my Parkinson's, my Mrsa, my infection, my 50-50 chance of living. And something clicked in you, and that was the voice, the deep, deep voice that said, what have you got in you? And I think that's just such a pivotal moment, because then you made a decision. You made a decision that those voices were not going to drown out your voice. And I think the voice of God, which was saying, choose life. Will you choose life?
Yes.
And you said 10 more steps.
Yes. And for me, for somebody else, 10 steps was the hardest 10 steps for me to take.
Sure.
But I'm somebody that normally would say 10 miles, because that's just how I do things.
Yeah.
But I had to go back to 10 steps.
Yeah,
and I had to go, yes. And it also triggered for me, because I had actually had walked a quarter of a mile, and then I couldn't move for 5 days. I had to choose, for me, the gentler, softer, easier path. And I ended up getting further with those 10 steps than I ever did trying to just push and berate myself to do a quarter of a mile, to do a half a mile. I couldn't get anywhere in that year and a half. I had tried, but just being kind and accepting that this was all I had and that it was going to be a difficult 10 steps and I had to just be okay with it.
Hmm.
I got faster that way than I had all the times I tried to push myself.
So interesting, isn't it? There's
Yeah,
so
it
much,
really is.
yeah, there's so much going on with us. I think as women too. I mean, men don't tune out, but I think sometimes women, we tend to be very hard on ourselves because we carry so much and we juggle so much. We take on, you know, we're really good at multitasking, and I think sometimes that can harm us.
Yeah.
And when we're driven in our careers and we're driven with our families and things like that, sometimes it's just a time thing, right? We're trying to just get it all in. And
Yeah.
right. And but then also you said that you were an equestrian. And I think you know, that's I was an equestrian when I was younger. So there is a sort of, there's a lot of driven people in that field. And
Oh, yes.
it's very intense.
It is
And
very intense.
yeah, so I can see that. I can definitely see that personality and those traits. But you had to slow down to go fast. And I
I
think that's
did.
really key. Yeah.
I did. And I had to be tender. I had to be loving and forgiving of myself. Um,
Mm,
um, and that just, it was such a shift. And I wasn't even aware of that happening to me. I
mhm.
mean, it took a while before I could see it, in part
Yeah.
because I was on an enormous amount of medication. I was still in a lot of pain. Again, and all of that clouds your mind. You
Yeah.
won't convince me otherwise that
Sure.
chronic pain on many levels, and then that sort of medication, which was poisoning my body, affected my ability to think, affected for the light bulbs to go
Yeah.
off. Yeah.
Did you
Um,
blame yourself? Were you blaming yourself for these things? Do you think you did? The
That's so interesting you asked that, and I say that because I had a documentary team that followed me for 3 or so days. I'll be in a documentary called Healing Humanity, and that's one of the
Yeah.
questions that I was asked that came through. Unbelievable moment that got filmed. At the time I didn't. I don't know. I think so, probably because that's my nature. I'm pretty tough on myself. you
Yeah.
know um
Yeah.
um and and one of the gifts through all of this is learning not to be so tough on myself,
Yeah.
because it just is that way. Yeah, so I think I did blame myself. uh, um and um and I saw all of this as a weakness, and I don't like weakness. It made me very vulnerable, having to depend on a lot of people for things. I'd rather have my eyeballs gouged out, frankly. I've,
Yeah. I'm just laughing because, yeah, it's just the independent spirit. I get it. I totally get it.
you
It's
know,
yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
and now I've had to. I mean, one of the gifts is I've learned to be really vulnerable. I mean, I'm pretty open sharing myself, and that's makes me, which I didn't even intend to do that. That was another God thing. Um,
Mhm.
and there's some beauty in being vulnerable. There's a beauty in asking for help, and uh, you
Yeah.
know, having that people care and want to do things for you, and not seeing being vulnerable as a weakness. So there have been a lot of blessings, but yeah, the enormous amount of lessons, and then as my body healed, changing my diet, just remarkable things happened. And I'd say in 6 months I eliminated my first medication, which was my omeprazole, because I had no heartburn. So why do I need medication twice a day for heartburn?
Mhm.
At 9 months was when the light bulb really went off in my head, where I really started. At this point, I'm sort of just going through. I'm not feeling worse. Maybe I'm feeling a little better. I'm still doing my 10 steps. I'm walking more. I'm not hurting as much as I'm trimming down. I still am limited with my movement. I'm still showering to wash my hair, but I'm starting to feel good, and my symptoms, my neuro symptoms, are improving at the 9-month mark. And that's when I started to get to 70, 80% fat. And that was kind of by accident. I found myself craving beef. I found myself craving fat. And he said, you just need to listen to your body. Just go with it. Don't worry about it.
Mm.
And I started to find I don't need it, because before I would take my Parkinson's medication. I mean, I didn't even need a clock. I knew in 3.5 hours, where I had those pills lined up to take my next,
Sure.
my medication. And I'm not having to do that now. And that's when I connected in my head, oh my God, my diet is, I am nourishing my diet, and my diet is absolutely changing the way I feel, and it's affecting my health for the good, and it's starting to, it's performing better than the medications, and I'm healing.
So, wow. So
Yeah.
you're at 70 to 80% fat. And let's just clarify for listeners, you're eating fatty meats, like
Fatty
fatty
meats.
beef, ribeye, that kind of
Yes,
thing,
yes.
marbled.
Marbled. And then I'm
Hmm.
adding MCT oil and a little
Okay.
coconut oil in my diet to get up. I am
Hmm.
having avocado. I'm not carnivore yet. I'm keto, but and I do want to say
Yeah.
I'm clean keto. There is a difference. You
Let's,
might
yeah.
don't even bother doing keto if you're going
I,
to do the packaged stuff. I mean,
yeah.
because you're honestly lying to yourself.
Keto friendly. I want to say this too. Yeah,
Oh,
because people will say, I know that we're going to get somebody in the comments that says,
yes,
I tried keto, it didn't work, or
right,
keto's bad for you, et cetera, et cetera. If you're buying things that are in a package with a barcode that say keto friendly, or it's something about net carbs, and
yes,
you open it and it's sweeter than any bag of cotton candy you could ever
right.
eat, that's not a keto diet.
No,
That is what I would call a Cheeto
yes, that's
diet,
a good one.
because you're cheating. You're basically just substituting the crap that you were eating before with stuff that's supposedly keto approved.
Right.
That's not really a change. And so when you say clean keto, you're talking about real food, whole foods that
Real
aren't
whole food.
that
Yes.
aren't ultra processed. So
Correct. So
yeah,
nothing's in a package. Yeah.
yeah. Now, are you cooking your own food at this point? Are you better
No,
at
I am.
preparing?
Yeah. So I'm,
Okay.
cooking the hamburger meat and the steak, and,
Yeah.
because that's pretty easy. You can do that on a stove. Actually, it's easier because I'm not doing 20 vegetables in a salad to make a salad
Right?
interesting.
Yeah.
I might have a little bit of arugula. I might have a little bit of a sweet potato or some plantains, because I'm now cut down my carbs to 5%.
Oh, yeah.
I'm cutting, and we're not talking net carbs, because that's just, I
Right.
mean, it's a counting scam. And so I'm having a little bit of vegetables, a little bit of fruit, um, uh, and low sugar fruits,
Hmm.
and but mostly it's, starting to the meat. I might have a little bit of dairy, um, with that, but no. And I'm just finding I'm improving, and then I start, which I like to say, uh, I made the decision that I was going to taper off my medications. One, a lot of my medications I had leeway and encouraged with the doctors to play with the dosage, because,
Hmm.
especially my Parkinson's. But I'm not suggesting somebody else do this, but I didn't work with a doctor, because most of the doctors didn't want to hear, about it, and I was getting a fight, and I just, again, made the decision what I knew was right for my body. I'm going to listen to my body, and I'm going to start getting myself off the medications. And I
Right.
proceeded to, for the next year and a half. I never cheated. I stayed with that keto, high fat diet, good foods, no grains, nothing gluten,
Hmm.
because I'm starting to get better, and I didn't want to change any of that. And it took me
Right.
a year
Yeah.
and a half to get off my medications, my last two. When now I'm really improving, I decided to taper myself. It took me a good 3 to 4 months to get off of 1,200 milligrams of carbidopa for my Parkinson's. Yes.
Wow. So, and
No symptoms. So as my symptoms are getting
it's
better,
crazy.
it is crazy because,
Yeah.
I had masking. I walked with a cane. 3.5 years ago, if I visited anybody, I had wheelchair assistance in the airport. I
Yeah.
was not walking from one terminal to the next.
What was a couple things. So when you talk about eating this way, it's hard for people to imagine. Sometimes, especially when you say that you were 80% fat, because the dogma around that has gotten so ingrained in us as a society. And I came of age during the fat-free era,
Yeah,
and that was really devastating to me. I dealt with incredible suicidal tendencies. And I'm
sure.
convinced it was because of the fat-free diet and high grain diet that I was eating, because I had never experienced that growing up. Like you, we ate basically real food.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that my friend Larry, his mom made a hamburger helper, and I thought that was just this amazing gourmet treat that his family had. And I asked my mom to make it, and she said, we don't eat food out of a box. And so we grew up, eating real food, and there was a garden and things like that. So I get it. And then you go to college, and you're told all of that's wrong, and any fat you put in your body is going to make you fat. And so
Yeah,
that's exactly the mindset that I was on, and I get it. And so, you're switching over, and to those people who are listening, this is going to create some cognitive dissonance for you. It's going to rock your world on some level, and that's okay, because that's sometimes the first starting point, which is what happened to you, Mimi, when that guy told you, are you gonna trust me? Will you trust me? You actually got angry when he told you the plan, and then you realized, what have I got to lose? I mean, I'm a
yeah.
walking time bomb here. And
Well, I
so,
am.
yeah, you were. And so that was really your defining moment, and you had a very big why. And I'm not here to try to convince anybody to do anything, but there's people listening right now who are the bells are going off, and you're starting to realize, hold on a second, there's something different happening. And this woman is a testament to that. Something changed, and that whole fat as nutrition story may be something I want to look into. That may be you if you're listening. So that's just something to think about. And I will put some links and resources in in the chat today, or in the comments, and in the notes. Just be aware, I'm not actually trying to sell you anything. I'm just giving you someone else's story, and I haven't even told my story yet. But there's some things that are changing in me, because I've been embracing this way of eating for several months now. But let's get back to your story, which is what's going on with your family at this point. I mean, your family was ready to put you in a home, and
Yeah.
I can tell they loved you, but they were heartbroken at what was happening to you.
Yeah.
So how's all this going with them when you tell them that you're going to eat a whole bunch of meat and fat?
So, they were just amazed, and they didn't question it because they're just
Okay.
watching me transform. It wasn't until after I was, say, where I looked like I was pretty much all healed and I was off all the medications, including the last one. They wanted me on antibiotics for life, the doctors. And I took myself, so I was on them for 3.5 years. They said it would come back. And I went to the doctor and said, we need to talk about this. He said, no, absolutely not. You'll die. It'll come back to Mrsa in 30 days. It's hiding, and it'll kill you. And I said, well, I've been off for 45. And because I knew what was going to happen. And he said to me, okay, well, you're alive. Give me a call if you start feeling like you're getting the symptoms again. And I've been off for 2 years this summer, this past month, June. I've been off of antibiotics. I've been off of all medication, 13 plus. I'm off of everything. I am symptom free, pain
Wow.
free, 2 years. But probably about a year ago, that my family was like, all right, so you're doing great. Are you going to start eating the way we eat now? Are you going to have the pasta? You don't want a salad? And I'm like, no, you don't understand. I got well. I got well this way. I'm not going back because I went carnivore a year and a half ago. So I went even more extreme. Before I would have, a salad with it. I just, I'm going to have olive oil and vinegar. I'm not going to have a dressing not that my family serves from a bottle, but I ate really particular and definitely no sugar. I still was getting recurrent ear infections, and I knew I was going to have to. I did have some Mrsa last year come back, and I knew that I was going to have to be a little bit more drastic in my healing, and that's when I went carnivore. And I'm free, and I'm absolutely the healthiest and fittest I've ever been in my whole life.
Amazing, amazing.
Yeah, I'm going to walk 16 miles tomorrow. I just did 14 last week. I weight train 3 times a week. I'm literally unstoppable at my age.
How old are you now? I can ask.
I'll be 70 September 2nd.
Wow. Wow. And I really hope that people are taking hope from this. I certainly am. I'll be 60 next year. So, it's just amazing. And just for the purpose of defining what we're talking about here, people have heard of keto, people have heard of carnivore. When it comes to like, what is carnivore? Basically, Dr. Sean Baker says anything that had a face or a mom or dad. Yeah. And so Dr. Ken Berry says beef, butter, bacon, and eggs, just to keep it simple. It's animal products. So it's going to be, for many people, it's primarily beef or other ruminant animals like lamb or goat, because of the way that those animals, their stomachs are actually, they have 4 stomachs. And so they digest and process foods and toxins in a way that produces an end product that many people who have a lot of sickness in their body find to be the most digestible and the most bioavailable. And there's much less chance of ingesting any toxins from the meat. There's other reasons behind it too, but carnivore also includes pork, fish, chicken, of course, eggs, some dairy, those types of things. It's all under the umbrella of carnivore. It just really depends on the taste and the preferences, and also the issues that each person is dealing with. People will use carnivore as a strict elimination diet.
Yeah.
Some people who watch Michaela Peterson and Jordan Peterson have learned a little bit about that because they've done something called the lion diet, which is really just beef and salt and water. And because they had so many severe issues that they were dealing with, that's extreme. It's not necessarily what everybody needs, but a lot of people find that doing a strict 90-day carnivore way of eating can really affect some drastic change. And then they slowly may reintroduce things. But what you're saying is that you decided to go just strict carnivore because you knew that reintroducing those things, which your family asked, that you didn't want to because you don't want to take the risk, right?
Right. And I'm actually lion diet now.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I did want to, because you just touched on it with elimination. So when
Sure.
I did the 50, the 25, and the 25, and it was clean, how I got to where I am now is I started to notice that if I eliminated lectins or oxalates, I had an improvement. And
that's nuts and vegetables, basically.
Nuts and some vegetables.
Okay.
Yeah, there are some that, like I can still have avocado. Those are fine. A couple others.
Mm-hmm.
But what I found is I started to make choices. What is going to make me the healthiest and what makes me feel good. And so when I had as many symptoms as I did, like the Petersons had a lot, I eliminated. And I kept eliminating until I got to a point where I was symptom free and the healthiest I've been. which is where I am now. So
Okay.
it was, and somebody might be able to stop. So I just eliminated eggs this year, and
Okay.
it's like I just don't do as well with eggs. I
Hmm.
wish I could, and somebody else might be
Yeah.
able to.
Yeah.
But for me, and can I go back? I keep testing. Now I'm here in Florida on vacation. I will have fresh seafood. I do fine with that, but I do better when I keep it simple. If I add nightshades back, which are tomatoes, eggplants, peppers, I definitely will notice that any sort of joint problem or flare could come back. So
Hmm.
it's not worth it to me. Um, when I travel, I might break a little bit of rule, and I'm healthy enough and have been in it long enough that if I go back to the way I eat the next day, I'm fine.
Sure.
But I eliminated, not for the sake of eliminating, but my goal is I don't want to have, we're not supposed to walk around with pain. I mean, I even have osteoarthritis, bone
Right.
on bone joints, and they don't even bother me anymore.
Yeah.
You know, so we're supposed to be our healthiest. And so I eliminated who I could get at that point, which is where I am now. It isn't just
Hmm.
eliminating for the sake of eliminating to say I'm on something.
Sure. Yeah. And I think that's really key because I'm in some communities with people who are coming into this way of eating and wanting to get more support. And I think one of the key things that you're saying here is that you're doing this by choice. You're
Yeah.
making your decisions because you actually want to be better. And one of the things that I see a lot with people who are making any lifestyle change is the language and the mindset that you bring into it really makes a difference. And
Yes.
and so for example, you chose to eat only meat. You chose to start eliminating things, and I haven't heard you say I have to do this.
No.
Right? I have to eat this way. My doctor told me I have to eat this way. In other words, you are owning your choices and you are
Yes.
taking personal responsibility. And this is a big thing when it comes to making the changes. And I think that all goes back to those first 10 steps. What do you have in you?
Right.
Do you have 10 steps?
Right.
And right? And so
Yes.
what is it that you want? And I'm talking to my listeners right now. What do you have in you? And what do you want? What do you want this part of your life and your future to look like? And what do you want to accomplish? And are you willing to have that talk with yourself? And are you willing to find those 10 more steps? Are you willing to look seriously at making changes? Not because you have to, not because somebody's telling you to do it, but because you're owning your choices and you're taking responsibility for who you are and where you are. That's my question to everybody who's listening. It's my question to myself. And I ask myself that a lot. And I know that Mimi has done that too, and she does it every day.
I do it every
And
day. Every decision I make is this what's best for my health?
yeah,
You know, it's and that's one of the reasons, you know, I did lose weight.
yeah.
That's just a natural progression. Why I don't show pictures of that, because I didn't do it to lose weight. I did it to get healthy.
Mm,
Because there's a different mindset when you are making a decision. Is this the best decision for my health? Then am I doing this so I can fit in this size?
it's
There's
so
a there is a difference. One, to me, I find is lasting, and provides a legacy. Uh, and that doesn't mean that weight loss isn't going to aid in health and better health. But I do think, and that I credit that to the man that I worked with, because I would
mhm.
say, I'm not losing the weight. He said, but you just got off another medication. Whatever you do, we're getting you healthy. Don't worry about the weight. The weight will come off and work itself on its own. And you know, he had to talk me off the cliff a couple times, but you know,
Yeah.
it really was a lasting key in my mind. So even to the point where, okay, I want to walk, I want to push and do another more mile, and then I ask myself, is this for my best interest to do this mile or not? Do I really have this in? Because it
Mhm.
changes how you live and how you how you value your body. Are you listening to your intuition? Because my eating is intuitive. Do I need more protein or more fat? And for me, that's really been key is basing those decisions, basing those choices on what's best for my health and being the most vibrant I can be. And it's the
Mhm.
best thing we can leave our children. My kids
Yeah.
my kids don't worry and fret over me. Not that they don't care and aren't thinking
Sure.
about their mom, but it's the best legacy I can leave them is by living my life to the fullest at this age, and it's pretty a vibrant, full life that I do have.
That's you beat me to my question, which was, you know, I think when people hear somebody say, "What's the best thing for me? What's the best for my health?" There is a tendency for people to think, "Oh, maybe she just cares all about herself." But here's something that we hear often, which is put on your own oxygen mask first
Yes,
so that you can then help others. And clearly, you have a vibrant, active family. You have 3 teenage grandsons, and, they're not having to take care of Mimi. You're actively participating in life, and you are giving them an example of and your children, your daughters, what it is to age well
right,
and to take that responsibility and to take on and to do what's best for yourself so that you can leave a legacy. And I think that's the key. The word that you use is legacy. It's a legacy of wellness. It's a legacy of self-care because of the bigger picture.
right.
And that's a beautiful thing. I want, if you have a few more minutes,
I do.
I'd really like to go into a little bit of mindset and faith, because I mentioned at the beginning of the interview that you have a very inspiring Twitter feed, and you focus on the positive, and it's an interesting atmosphere to see that because it's not typical of what we find on that platform. Um, but it's really important to you. So how did you go from those rock bottom moments to waking up every day and inspiring others? What was
Oh
that
God,
journey?
gosh. Well, it sort of happened to me a year ago. I had 135 followers. It was more on the political side. Um, and somebody had posted a picture of no makeup of some 20-year-olds, how brave they were, no makeup. I'm like, that's not brave. You're 20.
Your
You know,
skin is perfect.
your skin is perfect. You don't have a wrinkle. Nothing's dropped. Nothing's
Yeah.
sagging.
Yeah.
And I kind of laughed like, and there was a bunch of them. And I just thought, oh God, you're gorgeous. You
Yeah.
guys have any clue? There's nothing brave. So I posted a picture of myself, no makeup, and my age, and it blew up. I had a
Okay.
thousand new followers in 24 hours. It got 10,000 likes, and all of a sudden, people are saying, "How are you doing this?" And I said, "Well, you don't know the story. I was sick, so and now I'm well. This is how I eat." Well, that clearly was a God moment. I mean, there's a lot of people
Sure.
on Twitter. And the funny thing was when I posted the picture, I was nobody's going to see it. I have 135 followers after 4 years,
Yeah.
and I wake up and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to delete my account. I can so was mortified, and then I was like, I heard a voice. Just leave it and wait. And then at the end of the day, when I had 10,000 likes and all these followers, I was like, I got to delete it. And then, again, I hear a voice, no, you're going to leave it and tell your story. And that's how I
Wow.
got from there. And I started to share. And then, I really can't tell my story without sharing my renewed faith because, my part of my healing didn't just stop with the food. It started with I live at the beach in Charleston, and I don't know what drove me to go out to the beach and watch the sunrise. Um, and something transformed in me, and my heart just started to fill with gratitude, and a huge shift in my life where I really started to embrace the sunrise. I cold swim, I ground walk in my bare feet in the grass, just living, my life fully, and my heart's about to burst, and really from just gratitude every day that I get to
Mhm.
wake up and I'm healthy. And it's like you said, Twitter is an interesting platform, and I thought, I can't be true and honest in sharing my renewed faith, and I'm just going to do it. And if you don't want to follow me, you don't like it, and there's plenty that don't, then you can go somewhere else. But I
Mhm.
have to be honest, because um, it's a part of it. And
Definitely. Yeah. I mean,
yes,
it's clear, going back to the park bench, that
yes,
God sent, I believe, two angels to get you to the hospital. And, and then you hear this voice, God is speaking to you
yes,
and directing you, and you have this will to live.
yes,
And, there's a verse, it's not in my head right now, but when God is speaking to his people in the Old Testament, in the book of Chronicles, he says, I put before you life and death. Choose, and then he tells them immediately, choose life.
yeah,
And so, like, he gives you the answer, but not
yes,
everyone is willing to do that. And you made that
no,
choice on that day when you decided to walk 10 steps,
yes,
that you were choosing life. And it's the thing that's inspiring to me about your story is that it's a process. It's very clearly a process. It didn't
yes,
happen all at once. And it also involves the will, that you are willing to take the steps. You're willing to participate and to move just one step at a time. And
yes,
I think that people get pretty frustrated when they don't see progress,
yeah.
especially, for example, you said that you really didn't even see much progress when you started working with the guy with your diet. It was like 6 months, that you started to notice.
I'm
Yeah.
like I'm not feeling worse. I'm not going
Yeah.
back for another medication,
Right,
which
right.
was progress in its own self. But I
Yeah.
really didn't. It was really 9 months in. Yeah, and that's why I say, doing those. You're better to do those 10 steps every single day than to do 100. And I was an example of, okay, I got a quarter of a mile and then I'm set back. There's a
Mhm.
shift that happens when you show up for yourself for that little bit, whatever your 10 steps is. I know people that have had dealt with MS, with strokes, that maybe only can take 5 steps, and they are absolutely making phenomenal progress and having a firelight inside of them right now. There's something that shifts when you show up for yourself that every day. And before those 10 steps, I thought God was done with me. I really just, I was going to succumb to it. And, taking those 10 steps, and, now he's using me in remarkable ways. Um, and it was a slow process. My healing has been a journey of about, it's 3 years. With, 3 years, I took those 10 steps in, March of 3 years. So 3 years and 2 months. You know, it,
Mhm.
I was pretty sick, but think about it. My healing has been quicker than all the years I was sick. I was sick for a
Yeah.
lot longer. So, and at my age, I think it's really almost miraculous that could turn around in the time period I did. Um,
Yeah.
and I just wanted to say that
Mhm.
the important thing is it took me, those 10 steps every day took me from a place of no longer looking where I was, but holding space, because I couldn't see where I wanted to go. That was too hard for me to imagine. I still couldn't see the light at the tunnel. That took a while, but I went um, from where I was to simply holding a space of where God was going to take me. I didn't need to see it, but I held the space for it.
I I'm digesting that, because I've heard people use that term, but this is the first time that it's it's actually made sense to me. Can you say that again?
Yeah.
It's profound.
So when I turned to take those 10 steps, I no longer focused on where I was. Because if I kept focusing on where I was, I would still be there. Because I obviously was still there after all the 15 months of physical therapy. But what happened when I took those 10 steps, which was different than what I had been doing and what I felt led to do, I simply held the space for where God was going to take me. I wasn't in a place where I had a vision or a dream at this point. So I simply just held the space and allowed God to move me in the way that God wanted to move me rather than, so it was really a moment of surrender is really what it was. And I held the space for where God was going to take me.
That's awesome. That's so inspiring. And I love it. I love that I have a picture of it and you illustrated it so beautifully. It's really good.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, and here you are.
Yeah, here I am.
Cruising into your 70th birthday. And
yeah.
so you have you have some other you're mainly on Twitter, right? That's where
Yes.
people can go to follow
Yes.
you and get the daily inspiration. You post every day something inspirational.
I do a morning, greet
Yeah.
everybody in the morning, let my routine, what I eat, because everybody likes to know that. I
Mhm.
usually will do some sort of inspirational during the day. And then I say good night to everybody at nighttime. And some often inspirational. I try to do a sunrise and a sunset image
Mhm.
or something close and wish everybody a good night. And then I'll do a couple in the day.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, I'm also on Instagram. My Instagram account got hacked about 2 months ago, so the name's a little different. It's Mimi Morgan with the initial K at the end. My Twitter is Mimi K Morgan,
Okay.
but
Okay.
Instagram is K at the end.
Got it.
Of course, they can't get me. They got rid of the hackers, but they can't get me back into my account. So
Sure. Yeah,
I had to start over.
I
Yeah, but
understand. Yeah.
Twitter's where you find me. It's what I'm most
Yeah, yeah,
comfortable
and
with.
that's where we connected.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you are going to be part of this documentary, uh, and the Healing Humanity. I've heard about
Yes.
that. Do you
Wonderful.
know when is that going to come out? Do you have any
That
idea?
that that should hopefully next fall. They're still in the process of filming some people. They may come back and film me. I'm not
Hmm.
going to say any more for something
Sure.
something exciting. We'll see. But looks like next fall it'll be. It's going to be phenomenal. As I said, they spent 3 days just taping me from morning till night,
Hmm.
including just one other thing. You'll see a lot. I should show a picture of me running stairs and me with a kettlebell. So I had to leave my home of 27 steps. I went from the hospital to my daughter and son-in-law's place. I could never go back to my home. They said I'd never walk 27 steps. Once a week, my trainer, I work with a personal trainer 3 times a week. One of them is at my place where I live now. Those are some pretty steep stairs, and I run up and down with a 20-pound kettlebell just to remind myself how they said I would never walk upstairs again. Now I run up and down them with a 20-pound kettlebell. So I've taken back my life, and I remind myself every week. It's brutal. It's absolutely brutal to do. There's a steep stairs, but just to remind myself of how far I've come, of how grateful I am, and just because they said I couldn't do it.
I think there's a book in there somewhere.
Oh,
The first 10 steps.
thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, Mimi K. Morgan, thank you so much for being here with us. To all of my listeners, if you like what you see here, please be sure and follow me here at marygracemedia.com. Join the mailing list so that you can get notified of more great content like this. And everybody, thank you so much for being here. Please be sure and follow Mimi over at her Twitter account and get your daily inspiration. Please also let us know in the comments and in the chat, what is your takeaway from this? What are the 10 steps that you need to do and that you want to do to reclaim your life? I would love to hear your story. Let us know in the comments. Everybody have a great day. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you again, Mimi, for your incredible story. Bless you.
Thank you.
We're still here, so don't go away, everybody. I have with me Mimi. She is right here live, and we have gotten just amazing, incredible feedback in the chat while we have done this live stream. We were streaming on Rumble, Facebook, where else? X, Rumble, Facebook, X. Did I miss one?
Instagram.
Instagram. Instagram. This is what I get for reading chat while I'm talking. So welcome, Mimi. It's just fantastic to have you here. I'm looking through the chat to get some of the questions. And what are I just want to get your feedback listening back on the interview. How is it for you hearing your story play out like this?
Oh, wow. It's always interesting. I usually, sometimes it takes me a little bit to process. I'm in the moment, so I don't really not thinking what I'm saying. So when I listen back, it's always interesting, the reaction. I absolutely love this one. I found myself having tears listening to it. It's similar to the sense that I got, two women sitting on a sofa having a conversation, just looking at each other, just talking. So it really was, it was wonderful. I'm really grateful for the opportunity. So thank you.
I'm so glad.
They're all my favorites, but this was especially one of my favorites.
Good. You've done a lot of interviews. So that's really great. I'm glad to hear that. People are asking for your Instagram again, and I just posted your X in the chat, but it's at Mimi K Morgan on X. What's your Instagram account? Tell us.
It is
really
Mimi Morgan K.
Okay, that's right. Mimi
So the
Morgan.
middle initial K is at the end.
I'm going to put that in the
Don't
chat.
Don't go to the other one. I can't even get it deleted. It's still up. I still have people following the hacked one. But Mimi Morgan, initial K.
Okay, yeah. So her original account got hacked. Okay,
right.
So I do have a few questions, and let's see. Christy on Facebook wants to know, do you have a website?
No, I don't. I may have. I've done some cooking, and everybody wants me to do put some cooking posts. So there may be a YouTube down the way if I can figure out the tech part. There may be a YouTube down the road.
Yeah.
Towards the end of the summer, but no website. I have a list of all my podcasts, and anywhere you can reach me on my profile page on X, and that's really, I'm there every day. I'm not every day on Instagram.
Okay, so you're most active on X.
I am. It's just easy format for me. It just seems to work really well.
Okay, and you have links to other interviews that you've
I
been
do
on.
Everything on my profile. I have a link there,
good,
and a link to my Instagram as well.
Okay. Greg has a question on YouTube. How many medications were you able to get off of so far?
I'm off of everything. So 13 plus, and I say plus because every time I count, I forget that, here's another one that I'm off. I've been off for 2 years this past June, so over 2 years now.
It's amazing.
It was amazing. And a lot of them were really hardcore, really expensive medications, including some asthma. I didn't talk about it because I forget about it, but I was diagnosed with asthma at age 2. I took asthma medication every single day of my life up until 2 years ago. I grew up. That's huge.
It's amazing.
That's 68 years of being on, or 66, since 2 years of age, I was on medication. I had it pretty severe as a child, and sometimes hard to control as an adult. and even for the doctor, when I went for, because I do keep it emergency when I get a cold, so I do have some on hand to take, and a nebulizer when I get a bronchial infection. But I mean, mainstream doctor and my pulmonologist said, I don't see any reason you to be on it anymore.
Yeah.
And so that's pretty amazing. So 13 plus.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for 2 years.
Similar for me. Let's see. Terry on Facebook has a question. Oh, Linda on Facebook says, that's wonderful. I got off all meds too. And Greg, I want to go back to Greg on YouTube for just a second, because he's actually been doing carnivore. And so he is a huge advocate. And he said that he's resonating with everything you're saying here. Let me go back to what he said. And I have a question for Nancy Drew too, but let me just go back. Let me see. It's a little tricky because we have so many comments.
Yeah. I remember Nancy's question. It was a good one.
Yeah. So Greg says he's been on carnivore for 6 months and healing autoimmune issues. That's a big one. I think there are a lot of people who have had great success with reversing autoimmune and putting them into remission or completely reversing. Yeah. And Dr. Ken Berry's wife is one of those people with Hashimoto's. So her name is Nisha. And if you go to his YouTube or his X account, he can link to her. They do a live Q&A every Monday. And I want to be clear too, as we're talking, everybody's going to have an opinion about this way of eating, and some people are going to think certain things about it, think a certain way, and that's okay, because maybe it's not for everybody, but the people that are experiencing positive changes are what you would call an N=1 experiment. And many people actually have the blood work in the labs to back up what's happening in their bodies. And I think that my audience is sophisticated enough, I know you are sophisticated enough, to identify the fact that the agencies and the experts that have told us for a very long time that certain things will result if you eat X or Y, or if you don't eat X or Y, we should probably just reverse that. And so take the opposite of what they say to be true. And they've been telling us for a long, long time that red meat will kill you, that we should be eating bugs. And I would say, especially to my audience, ask yourself, what is behind the push to lower the cattle population in this country, to stop farming, to vilify cattle? Think about that. And again, knowing what we know about the agencies that we were supposed to be able to trust, knowing what we know and what we've seen over the last few years, do you really truly believe deep in your heart that they have your best interest when they tell you these things? That's just a question for you to answer. I'm not going to tell you the answer. A lot of you know my opinion, but this is just me editorializing. Okay, so let me go down. Nancy, Nancy's question. And this is on Nancy Drew on YouTube. What would Mimi suggest when you go to multiple doctors for many years and haven't been able to find an answer to a chronic illness? She said, let's see, I think what she's saying is, I haven't received any diagnosis or treatment that accurately fits your profile. I'm not sure I understand that, but basically, like, you don't know what's wrong. And you're looking and trying to find answers. I have some thoughts about that. I would like for you to start.
Sure. So, I mean, it's a great question. And my response is, don't wait for a diagnosis, because that's all it is. It's a group of symptoms that is given a label. It could be right, it could be wrong. Again, you don't need to take ownership of it, but don't wait for a diagnosis to heal. We're given we're given so many things to heal, and of what you're eating right now, you are having these symptoms, then I would recommend changing what you're eating, because what you're doing isn't working. And that's what I ultimately had to do. And you can start by eliminating sugars and glutens, and see how you feel, and then go from there. For me, I had to go all the way to carnivore, particularly the Lion's diet.
And
But
what is that? What exactly is the Lion
and
diet?
I've got a little cheat with the Lion's diet, because I'm not giving up my morning coffee, my morning French press. So the Lion's diet is just beef and salt and water. So I do sparkling water, and I have my morning coffee. I'm on holiday now, so I am having wild seafood, and I don't do dairy, and it doesn't do well, but I've had a couple cappuccinos. I brought my own frother. I've made cappuccinos with the milk here, and I'll be fine for that. But then day to day, it's the Lion's diet. But I've been healing for a while, so I can afford to do that. But eliminate, if what you're feeling sick, and I have no doubt that food can heal us, especially nutrient food, then eliminate. Well, I hope my thing doesn't die. Let me push this in.
Sure.
Eliminate. I might have to go get another plug. Eliminate what. Just start eliminating, and eliminate packaged foods, because that I don't even call that food. And try to eat as clean and healthy as you can, and just keep going with it. But we're trained that we need a diagnosis, that we need a label, and we are given so many things to heal, including in sunshine, fresh air. Don't wait.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
take control of your life and heal now.
I like that. And it resonates so much with what we talk about here on the show. And I really do think that one of the big blessings to come out of the last few years is that people are very awake to that idea, that they're not just waiting for somebody to tell them what to do, especially people in the medical industry. Right? I really do think that it was an eye-opening experience, as hard as it was to go through so many of the things that we witnessed.
Yes.
And shocking in some ways, but it really, I think it was a big wake-up call for a lot of people. And so I love that advice. Sometimes you need help, and it's okay to ask for help.
Right.
But it is hard to know where to look. That's for sure. And I was chatting with some of the people here in the chat, and I was telling them that I've actually just recently started working with our functional medicine partner, who is one of the show sponsors, Dr. Troy Sproul at officialsynapse.com. He is a functional medicine doctor, and what he does is, of course, he's going to try to help me deal with symptoms, because I have Hashimoto's, which is an autoimmune thyroid that attacks your thyroid. But, what he really wants is to get to the root cause of what triggered that autoimmune condition, so that we can address that. And so I'm going through the process with him. There's a pretty lengthy questionnaire. He does an interview with you. It's the opposite of what most people have experienced with traditional doctors, where they're just in and out and they spend 30 seconds talking to you. He actually really digs deep into the conversation to help you. And there's really great communication through the patient portal and things like that. So I'm going to be sharing more about that, but that's one option as well for people to take a look at that and see if that might be the right avenue for you. They do a quick discovery call with you. There's no charge for that. And I've had some listeners who have signed on with them and are seeing really good results. And just, it's great to feel like you're being treated like a human.
Mm.
And that's what I like. And that, when you tell the doctor, hey, I've been thinking about this and I read about this, they don't just dismiss it. He's very supportive of me eating a carnivore diet, and he doesn't just poo-poo it. So that's kind of what the route that I'm going. I have a comment from Kim here on Facebook. She says, this is not a question. She just says, I'm just now going down the long road of having a debilitating illness. Doctors are wanting to put me on meds. Thank you for giving me hope. That's
Nice.
That's great. Yeah. And I wish you the best as you search and find the right people
Yeah.
to work with. Marianne Merritt, she's a friend who lives nearby. She says, I am off of MS medication, lifestyle. And she said, do you only eat organic? Do you?
Me. So I don't think organic is as organic. If I veer from my diet, I will. But I eat from regenerative farms. I don't buy meat from a grocery store. I eat grass-fed beef, and since that's my diet, that's all I eat. So it is farm-raised beef. I did want to just say briefly the comment before, if I can.
Sure.
While it's still fresh in my mind, I'm not anti-medication. Clearly, medication saved my life, not only with a stroke and the antibiotics that prevented the bacteria from killing me. And I think medication definitely has a place. I just don't view medication as a tool for healing. I think we're given other tools to heal our body. So I think it can certainly save us in emergency situations. It may aid in other avenues, but for me, medication was no longer a tool for healing. I really went, what I say, I live by nature, not the system, by the things that are supplied to us by God is really what healed and restored my body.
That's good. I like it. I am answering other questions while you're talking. And we have a good question from, let's see, from Kim. She's asking about the types of meat. I think in general, we're talking about the types of food, the types of meat. Is it organic, grass-fed, et cetera, et cetera? You're eating Lion Diet, which is only beef. And Kim is asking about turkey burger / meat.
It wouldn't have enough fat for me, so no, I wouldn't.
Not enough
I'll
fat.
have turkey at Thanksgiving, and I'll enjoy it. It'll be a fresh turkey, as good quality as I can get, from a reputable source. But it doesn't have enough fat for me, and I clearly thrive with the fat in my diet. So I would say no because of that. I don't even eat 90. I eat 80-20 beef, ground beef.
Yeah,
and I don't eat steak all the time too. But I eat the fat, and it's important for me to get it. So no, I wouldn't have a turkey burger for that very reason.
Yeah, I wouldn't have it either. Plus I'm just not a big fan of poultry. I went to grad school in a town that did poultry farming, and that was pretty much it for me in poultry.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But the other thing too, when it comes to beef and other like ruminant animals, cows, sheep, goat, antelope, deer, any kind of deer,
I eat
things
bison,
like that.
I eat elk.
Okay.
Lamb doesn't like me.
Okay.
So I just had some a couple weeks ago, but I definitely will have bison. I'll definitely have elk, beef.
Okay.
Those kind.
Okay. Yeah. And there's a reason for that. People, if you want to look up the ruminant animals, it's the way that they have multiple stomachs where they're able to digest and deal with the additives and even pesticides and things that may be in their diet. By the time the consumer eats the meat, those things are largely absent. Whereas if you're eating chicken, poultry, even some fish, you can get a lot of toxins in their flesh just because of their digestive systems aren't as sophisticated. And that's something, I'm not an expert on that, but if you listen to doctors like Dr. Ken Berry, he explains that really well. And again, when we talk about the carnivore diet, I am by no means an expert, and I don't think Mimi is trying to present herself as an expert either.
No, I'm far from an expert.
We're talking about personal experience, but these are things that I've learned just by listening to a lot of different doctors. Dr. Sean Baker talks about this. I got to meet him last week in Tulsa, so that was pretty fantastic. So it's, everybody has their own journey, and everybody is in a place where they're wanting answers to questions. And based on Mimi's experience, this way of eating may be a really helpful path for people who are listening here today. And so uh when it comes to, here's another question, hypothyroid. I'll say this about hypothyroid, just a quick answer. How do you know if you have Hashimoto's? It's antibodies. So when you get your blood work done, there are antibody tests that will show higher numbers. There's two different types of antibodies that show that the body is attacking the thyroid. And that's how you know it's a syndrome, a condition named after, I think, the doctor that figured that out. So it's not just an acute low thyroid condition, which can hit people at different times. Like women get that after pregnancy, for example, um, or after childbirth. So it is worth it if you are having thyroid issues to get a number of different tests to see if that's you. And again, if you work with our partner, Dr. Troy Sproul, he will do a comprehensive test if your symptoms indicate that that's needed. He's not going to do needless testing, but he did that for me because I already knew that I had the diagnosis. And so it made a lot of sense to see where we were currently with all of those numbers. Okay, so let me just see. Do you see any more questions here, Mimi, that you want to address? Yeah, we're not eating
No.
bugs. Okay,
Yeah, no,
nobody's eating bugs. Okay.
no, never.
Linda says, a well patient earns big pharma no money. That's true.
Yes.
Absolutely. Okay. Anything else do you see? Oh,
No, no.
cooking. How do you cook your meat? That's what Terry wants
Oh,
to know on Facebook.
so I dry brine my beef,
Yep.
and up to 36 hours. So I have two shelves in my refrigerator with my beef dry bind. I do a lot of braising. So I love arm roast, and I love beef shanks. And I'll do a lot of braising with that. My steaks I'll pan fry in cast iron in butter and tallow. Some of it's dry brine for a little bit or not, just depends
Mhm.
on the cuts. And I eat it rare. And I have a
Where?
smoker, so I'll smoke some. I'm
Okay.
not a great griller. It's a lot of work for me, and I'm not super confident, but I'm good
Yeah.
on the stove. I'm good smoking, and I'm good braising. And I
Okay.
make bone broth, so that's part of, I consider that part of the beef.
Yeah.
I make bone broth every week. I roast my bones, and then I'll finish it off usually in the Instapot. Use filtered water in there, and I have bone broth as well.
The bone broth has sometimes like a lot of the gelatin in it from
Yes, and
the
collagen and
marrow,
all that.
right?
That's been really
Collagen.
good.
Yeah, yeah, I do that some. I render my own tallow. I do the
Yeah,
dry
I get my
brining.
own tallow. I do chill it, and I have my tallow for the week. So I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
nothing's wasted. And I'll save my beef bone. I'll save all my bones. So you can make bone
mhm,
broth and use your bones twice. You just add a little apple cider vinegar to the water the second time to help draw the nutrients out. But I save, if I have a steak and there's a bone in it, I'm putting that in the freezer along till I
yep,
get enough bones. I also buy bones.
yep.
But I'll save my bones and get another batch of broth and get it's, you could stand a spoon in it, the rich gelatinous broth. And it's just so great and nutritious.
Yeah, that's kinda like me. I do, dry brining, and for those of you listening, it's really you just put salt. I use kosher salt. You pat the meat dry, and then you put it on a rack, and you don't want the meat, you don't want the steaks to be touching. I find that a little bit thicker steaks do better with dry brining, and you just pat the salt into the meat on both sides, and you leave it in the fridge, and it ages it.
It
And
does.
yeah, and then you can cook it in the oven. You can do a low and slow on like 200 or 250 until it gets to the internal temperature you want. If you're gonna pan fry it after that, just bring it out before it's quite up to temperature so that you can get it to rare or medium rare or whatever you want. I actually like eating cold beef. I like
I do
doing
too.
right, I do the dry brine and then I cook it up to temperature and I'll just slice it and eat it. And if you're not used to the fat from the beef, it's definitely more palatable when it's cold.
Yeah, I
Um,
always have a plate of cold beef.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I
it's
do, like skirt steak, I'll do that a lot, or I'll have a chuck
okay.
breast and have it cold, and I just
Okay.
grab a chunk. I love it.
Yeah. I'm gonna take a question from X. This is a quick question from Phyllis.
Oh,
Supplements. Are you
oh,
taking supplements?
yeah, I don't like to share too much on what my supplements are. They're suited for me. I will say I do take collagen peptides every day. I have
Okay.
that in my coffee. I take, I'm going to pronounce it wrong, um, creatine,
Creatine, oh,
CREATINE.
creatine? Yeah.
Yeah, I do take that.
Okay.
And I take my MCT oil and I take my coconut oil. And I do take magnesium before bed.
I do that too. Yeah. And I take well, I'm taking some supplements that I just got from the functional medicine doctor
Mhm.
to help me with B methylation because I have a
Yeah,
genetic
I'm the same way as you. So I
M
occasionally take that. And I have a few
yeah.
others that I'm not going
Yeah.
to bother mentioning that are suited just for me, but the others I do take
Yeah.
faithfully.
Yeah, the MTFHR, and then I have something I'm
Yeah,
taking for my thyroid.
yeah,
So, and again, I think one thing that I've learned through this process is that, working with somebody like Dr. Troy, I feel like I'm have a more targeted idea of
yeah,
what supplements I wanna take, whereas before, I was kind of throwing things at the wall to see what would stick.
right.
And so I think that's one of the benefits of having somebody that's helping you on your journey. I wanna read a comment from X. This is not a question, it's just a really nice comment. This is from Blue Sky Report. What an inspiring interview about healing from severe illnesses. For those with long-term neurological and immune dysfunction, keep in mind it may take a longer period of time to heal. I think that's a really good reminder. That everybody has a different timeline.
Right.
And one thing that I have found is that people get frustrated, but most people who are coming to this, at least the people that I know, are in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond. And it's very likely that you've spent at least 20 or 30 years breaking down the machine. And so, so it's really important to get the perspective that maybe it's going to take longer than a month
Yeah.
for you to get back. And you're an example of that as
Yes.
well.
Yeah, it
Okay.
was years.
Yeah.
Years. I would just say, um, just this May and June, I say, okay, I'm really healed. So it's taken a
Yeah.
while. And the important thing is yes, I wanted to be healed, but the lessons and the experiences that I and the oh, for lack of a better word, the character development and everything else,
Mhm.
and the learning to trust my intuition. I wouldn't trade it for a quick heal. I wouldn't trade any of my journey
Yeah.
for 1 month. I really honestly wouldn't, because there have been so many lessons, so many blessings that I would have missed without this whole process. That was just exactly what I needed. And
Mhm.
somebody might get something, or maybe their journey is shorter, but mine, I wouldn't trade it for a quick fix for anything.
Yeah, I hear that a lot. in this community with people who are embracing this way of eating and healing. I want to give a shout out to one of our most engaged listeners on X, um, because she has been commenting and sharing throughout the entire interview, and that's Granny Bull.
Yes.
So she good job. I just wanted to give you
Yeah,
a shout out, and also
she's great.
to Nancy Bird Blackwell. Her brother is recently diagnosed with Parkinson's, so this is a godsend for her to listen to your story. And Nancy is a friend. I've actually been up to her group up in Pennsylvania. They're doing amazing work up there. So shout out to you, Nancy, and prayers for your brother.
Mm.
Granny Bull is suggesting that we do a Twitter Spaces, which is really a good idea. We talked about that. We have a question from David Imhoff on X, and I think we'll start winding down here. It's a long, been on for a long time, and I think an X Twitter Spaces is a good idea, but we'll come back to that. David, I think I remember you from my Periscope days. Your name sounds familiar. Here's the question. I'm loving her journey, but it adds to my confusion. Jesus claimed all foods were okay to eat. I have been doing keto to help with my blood sugar, but miss carbs to a certain extent. And I do get tired of eating just carnivore. Any suggestions?
Oh, so if you, so what did he say he was missing?
Missing carbs to some extent.
That for me, that's a signal I need to increase my fat. Because
Okay.
when I get enough fat and protein, I don't even think about carbs.
Same.
So I look at food. I don't look at food as pleasure. And well, I get pleasure from eating because I love what I eat. It brings me joy because I'm living healthy, but I don't look at food as entertainment. So you kind of have to change your mindset. I eat food to nourish my body, and I don't then miss other things. And that doesn't mean I don't have a fleeting moment, but I don't romanticize this food or that food. It's really food that made me ill. So you have to change your mindset. But when I start craving carbs, I'm not eating enough fat and protein, because once you do that, you just don't crave it anymore.
Same here. I
Yeah.
find the same thing, and so that's where
I
the
think
planning,
most of us feel that way.
and it's where the planning comes in,
Yeah.
because, we get in the habit of having little, what I call emergency food snacks in the car, and driving through drive-throughs and things like that, and there's so many toxins in those foods, even the ones that are labeled keto friendly,
Yes.
organic, or a lot of organic foods have seed oils in them. We haven't even talked about that. But I think that when you're satisfied, when you have the satiety factor, you're not craving those things. And I've
Right.
heard so many people say that for sure.
Right. And there's so many cuts of beef.
Yeah.
There's so many ways to cook it. That's so satisfying.
Yeah.
Braised shanks doesn't taste like a steak. So I'm really never, I'm
Mhm.
just not bored.
Mhm.
Um, and if you're doing keto, there are certain foods, vegetables. I have to be careful of fruits. If I eat fruits, I usually will ferment them, which is a process that removes the sugar. And I
Okay.
might do blueberries in the summer. But if you're doing vegetables, choose the ones that aren't going to aggravate whatever it is you're dealing. Because certainly on keto has vegetables. A lot of people eat eggs and dairy. I wish I could. I keep trying. Honestly, it hasn't worked my whole life, and it just hasn't yet. Other people can and are quite comfortable with it, and that and occasional cheeses, they will put on weight. So if you're trying to lose weight, you might want to be careful with the amount of dairy, but that ought to be enough to really satisfy your cravings if you're having dairy, eggs, and beef. If you have to go carnivore, maybe if you've healed and you want to go back to keto and add those, give it a try and see how it works. Just because it doesn't work now doesn't mean it might not work in 60 days.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's helpful, especially, like, again, what you've said and what I've told a lot of people because of what I've learned is that, you know, carnivore is a really good elimination diet, especially if you take it specifically to beef, because it's really just taking out all of the other factors,
Right.
and it's highly nutritious, and so then when you start to experience healing, one thing I heard recently too is, in the beginning, write down everything that you're dealing with, because some people start to feel so good on carnivore, they kind of forget. And then that's when they get into trouble, because then they go back to eating the way that they used to. And then they start to feel these symptoms come back. And it's
Right.
very tempting, because like when you feel really good, you're like, oh, party on. And so it's a lot of a mindset change too, don't you think?
Absolutely, it's a mindset, and I was sick enough that I have no delusions that I
Mhm.
would go back. And
Yeah,
a lot of people do good on beef butter. Was it beef butter, bacon, and
and
egg?
eggs. Yeah, yeah,
And there's a huge variety. There really is a huge variety in that.
yeah,
I
yeah.
just found that these last 6 months I needed to
Mhm.
streamline it even more, and
Yep, yep,
whether that changes in 6 months. Right now, I'm sticking with what's
yeah,
really working.
yeah. I
But
think
somebody
that's
who's not as sick as I was, maybe can do healthier. I think the important thing
yeah.
is to stay away from anything that has a list of ingredients. Stay away from anything in the grocery
Yeah,
store that's packaged.
yeah,
None
yeah.
of that is going to serve your good health.
That's
Stay
really
away from sugars and grains.
That's a really good rule of thumb, and then also the grain replacement, so people go
Yeah,
crazy with almond flour and
yeah. Occasionally
cassava
you
and
can do that,
yeah,
but
and
just
things like that. Like
yeah,
any highly processed food, it seems like
yeah,
that gets people into trouble. One of the questions here is about when you start eating meats and fats, people can have some difficulty with digestion,
yeah,
and I'm gonna answer that question. Sometimes people need to take a digestive enzyme, especially if you've had gallbladder issues or even gallbladder removal or surgery. This is something, again, that I've learned from some of the other carnivore doctors like Dr. Ken Berry, but, it is helpful to take, um, digestive enzymes, and I take the ones that we actually sell in our superfood store that you can get on my website. So just go to marygracemedia.com, go to the shopping tab, and get on the superfood store, and it's called, Enzyme Advantage, and it has, lipase in it, which is one of the things that helps you digest fat. But, there's other enzymes you can get, but that seems to help people, and, like, I take one after a few bites of food, and that helps me. Again, it's everybody's different, but that helps me, and I'm not prescribing anything, I'm not a doctor, but just from my own experience, that's something that has helped me to make that transition into higher fat. Okay, so I think we're gonna wind it up here. Let me just check the X feed one more time. Uh yeah, some people Granny Bull is saying sometimes if you just put a little bit of salt on your tongue, that can actually help you with carb cravings and sugar cravings. And Carlene, I will share the link to the Enzyme Advantage. Here, let me just put the QR code to my website up here. So if you go to my website, you can just go there, marygracemedia.com, and click on shop, and then our superfoods are on there. And there's a lot of stuff there. And for people who are eating keto, and you want to keep greens in your diet, the greens that we have on the superfood store are very clean and free of heavy metals and GMOs and all of that. So if that's a priority for you, and you're okay and you feel good with greens, um, and you want low glycemic foods, that's a good place to shop. And if you use my promo code Mary Grace Media, you'll get the best discounts they offer on that. So just go to the website and check that out. Okay, so last words here from Mimi. Anything you want listeners to know today as we close out the show?
um, no, I think the only thing is when it comes to eating and eliminating, that's where, um, as you reduce the sugars and the carbs, you become a more intuitive eater. And a lot of your questions will actually be naturally answered. You'll be able to know. I think you have to eliminate a lot of the foods that are essentially poisoning you to get to that place. But, intuitive eating becomes more intuitive, where you just actually know, you recognize the natural cravings of the beef and the fat. And I think that that's really important.
Yeah.
That we're designed to eat intuitively, not driven by chemicals that create unnatural cravings. That eating is naturally to be an intuitive, do I eat one meal? Do I eat 2 meals? It's different for everybody. And I think that that's an important place to sort of strive to.
I agree. It's definitely, it's, I second that.
So that's it. But thank you for having me.
Yes, there's a lot of freedom in this. And thank you again for telling your story. For those of you who are just tuning in, if you missed the first part of this, we had an amazing interview with Mimi. And that was pre-recorded. So we played it back today. And then she came on live to answer your questions and participate with the chat. And so it's just been a fantastic time. And I really so appreciate your time being here today and really appreciate our audience. We have had such an amazing engagement across all of our platforms. And I just want to give a shout out to everybody that is engaged. And I do want to encourage my audience on the mainstream platforms to make sure that you're following me on the alternative platforms, which you can find by going to my website. We actually get a little bit of a black mark if we name those platforms. So go to my website and find them, because we just don't know how long we'll be on these big tech platforms. I think we're pretty good on X, but the other ones don't know. And so I encourage you to go and follow me at Mary Grace Media, and make sure that you also get on my email list, so that if something goes down, if I get removed or suspended or whatever, then you can find me and you can know when we do our shows. We will have more great content coming to you. Please just scroll through the back, the back streams of what we've done in the past couple of weeks. We've had some really great shows. And once again, thank you at Mimi K. Morgan on X. And everybody go follow her and just be inspired. If you need morning and evening inspiration, that's your channel to follow. Thanks again for being here, everybody. And we will see you back here on Mary Grace TV.